Live. We are live now.
Awesome.
I'm your host, Chris from the CHRILLCAST, and I have a very awesome guest today. Y'all should know who he is.
Hello, I am Tony from Hard4Games.
And unfortunately, due to a things that came up, Game Over Jesse will not be with us tonight.
Yes.
I realized that sounded kind of grave the way I said that. I think Game Over Jesse's fine, but we'll try and get him on in the future. Everything seems okay over there. He just had some things come up. So
yeah, I was hoping that he was going to carry this episode. Now, because I mean, he's the Zelda guy, really. I mean, he talks about Zelda like every time he goes live. It's Zelda,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's so we really have a lot to make up here. So we're going to just do the very best that we can.
Exactly. I am going to pull up Tony's channel real quick so we can show everybody how to see Tony's channel if they don't know how to get there already. He has the best name on YouTube, the Hard4Games channel.
Speaking of which, I'm going to try to get into the chat as Hard4Games here real quick.
There you go.
While you're doing that. You don't have to wait for me, though. I'm just clicking and clicking. And
there it is. There's his channel.
Uh-oh.
Make sure you guys go subscribe if you haven't already. I mean, the reason we started our channel, one of the reasons we started it was because of channels like his, because of how awesome the gaming community is on YouTube. So definitely one of my inspirations to start our YouTube channel. And if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do hit that bell. We did. We never get notified, but we did hit the bell. We're probably like Tony, where only specific creators get the actual notification, unlike the way it's supposed to be. But, you know.
I feel like YouTube has changed so many times that they've grandfathered certain people into certain policies and it's just so all over the place that maybe for a certain channel you get notified, maybe for another channel you don't. Like I would always joke, and I think I said this on a previous stream with you, like the only channel notification I get at all on Hard4Games is for Larry Bundy Jr.
And all you hear is, hello, you.
Yeah, well, love the channel, but I have notifications on for a variety of channels, but YouTube for years has only given me push notifications for him. And then I started watching more YouTube on my phone. Oh my goodness. Here's I think John possibly is.
Oh, is he logged
my
in?
Other producer? Yeah, he might be logged in as Hard4Games. But basically, like, my son would want to watch YouTube a lot, so I didn't want him using the Hard4Games like account, right? So I do my personal account,
right?
And I get push notifications all the time for all sorts of stuff that I don't have notifications on for.
Oh yeah, no, I know what you mean.
But for Hard4Games, only ever Larry Bundy Jr. Period. The end. YouTube refuses to give me anybody else, which is fine, I guess. But it's just YouTube's weird, man. Like you can't try to find any sort of logical pattern behind anything they do.
So that's me. I'm assuming that means it's John. I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's John.
Does John want to come on too?
John, do you want to come on and talk about Zelda? You could just go into the link that was in our Twitter account and
just hop right in. You're always welcome. All the rest of the Hard4Games crew is always welcome on. So
John,
anytime.
I haven't worked as much with him recently. I mean, we're constantly in contact, but just because of COVID, it's been slower. But he's one of our, for those who may not know, our producer and also one of our co-owners as well. So,
are you guys an LLC?
Yes, he owns as much of the company as I do. So,
I'm sure we can find him real quick here.
We're partners.
Let's see, right here, this guy, right?
Yep, that's him.
There he is.
I'm currently at a cabin with garbage internet. I'd love to come next time. Oh yeah, that's right. He's in what was I calling it? Vinny West. He's in West Virginia right now.
Fair enough. Yeah, I wouldn't want to come on stream on the can either. So there's that.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd probably be the wrong place to be when you're on a stream. I could be wrong, but probably get some viewership you weren't expecting. But you know.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
All right. So as far as the Legend of Zelda. The comment that he just posted.
West Virginia. How dare you, sir?
Coming from a channel like Hard4Games, I would expect that kind of lingo.
The great state of West Virginia.
Virginia, there you
took it and just turned it into something so vile.
All right. Anyways, Zelda.
Zelda.
Since this is the Intellivision Amico cast. No, I'm just kidding. Zelda. What was your first Zelda game, Tony?
Well, I played the original one, not so much back in the day when it came out, but like, like years later when I was in like elementary school, because the first one came out with like
80 something,
85, 86 or something. I was born in 85, so like
86. There it is.
Yeah.
You can't see it.
Yeah,
86.
So okay. Yeah, so the first one I played was Link to the Past, and I hadn't played it until it was kind of already a couple of years old. Like Zelda was in the lore, like
yep.
People were familiar with it. I actually watched the cartoon in like 89 or whenever it was. So I was vaguely familiar.
Oh yeah, I forgot that existed.
Yeah. So my second game was Ocarina of Time, because I remember playing Ocarina of Time and remembering and thinking there were some similarities, between the two in terms of like the lore and such.
Oh yeah.
And then it was a long time I didn't play any Zelda games. And then after college, I like binged a ton of them. So, but the first one really was Link to the Past.
Yes. So that's actually, I have a similar background on it. My sisters are about, one of them's 12 years older than I am. The other one's 14 years older than I am. So they're significantly older than I am at this point. I just like always to remind them that they're older than I am by
older, yeah.
more than 10 years. Anyways, they grew up on, they had like a lot of the game systems, but the SNES was around when I was old enough to actually play video games.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had Legend of Zelda Link to the Past. That was like one of 3 games. They had that one, they had like Mario Kart, and then they had Super Mario World. Those are the 3 games they owned.
Those are great games, but
yeah.
Limited, but great games.
My first Zelda experience was playing the opening to Legend of Zelda Link to the Past like 80 times, never knowing how to save.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Always just turning it off and not realizing I didn't save.
Yeah.
That was pretty much my experience in the beginning.
I had like played through like a bunch of sort of adventure RPGs, action adventure type games by the time I even got to Link to the Past, because the reason why I wanted a Super Nintendo is because I would go over my friend's house and he had Secret of Mana, and we would all play Secret of Mana like 3-player, like co-op. And so I wanted the SNES, even though I think by the time I got it, I think the Saturn was about to come out.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I had played that. I had played like Illusion of Gaia. So like by the time I got to Link to the Past, it was like I wasn't so young that I didn't understand, like, okay, I got to figure out a way to save. Like I could read at that point in time, like, I was in elementary school, but I mean, still.
I mean, yeah, nobody had showed me how to do that at the time. My sisters were just laughing at me because they thought it was funny.
So play over and just watching your uncle die over and over again in Link to the Past. Well, whoever his guardian was that he goes in and tries to save.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like Groundhog Day. I just kept saying, why doesn't this guy do anything different? He's the same thing over.
When's the next level?
So I was playing that one. And then actually my second experience was Link's Awakening, but not DX, the original Game Boy version.
Okay.
Link's Awakening was my second. And then after that, I played Ocarina of Time. But the one that I really like hooked me into the franchise after Link to the Past was actually Majora's Mask. I really, really loved Majora's Mask because when I got my GameCube, I had missed Majora's Mask, but they had that Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition. It had Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, Zelda 1 and 2. Mm. And so that was my first experience playing the original Legend of Zelda. And the Legend of Zelda Link's is it Quest? No, Link's Adventure. Link's Adventure. That's the second one.
Oh, yeah, Adventure of Link. Yeah.
Adventure of Link. Yeah, Link's Adventure.
For a second, I was thinking, like, are you going to say Link's Awakening? And then I was like, wait a minute, what's happening here? Like,
I've already played. Yeah, I already said Link's Awakening.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going back around to it. I was like, oh.
Now, actually, the one that I missed entirely was the Oracle games. I completely missed those entirely. But I probably will go back and play them eventually. I've heard they're really good.
They're worth it. They're definitely worth it.
But yeah, so then my first experience playing 3D Zelda after Ocarina of Time would have been on the GameCube playing the N64 games where they have like a bunch of sound, like slight sound issues, but yeah, that's actually my favorite way to play Majora's Mask. Now I can't get used to playing it on the N64. I know it's kind of backwards.
Just FYI, we have something called the Woodward Dream Cruise in Michigan, where basically, Michigan's big like motor city, cars, all that stuff. So we have basically along Woodward, which is a main thoroughfare. For 2 days straight, hot rods go up and down.
Is that what's going on outside?
Yes. So like I live in a city where it's like it's off of Woodward, and the cars try to turn around because it's difficult to turn around on the main street, but then they get lost where I live because like there's not a lot of clear, like it's kind of like loops around a lot, I guess.
I get
And so
that.
like there's just this like car going like angrily trying to find its way out. So you may hear that periodically. Just FYI, I apologize in advance, but
That's fine. No big deal. We've had police sirens going off where you could actually see the blue and red lights behind Will's apartment before. Yeah, because he used to live in Missouri, so when he wasn't living in, like, let's put it this way, he wasn't in like the absolute best area of Missouri, kind of on like a not a good part of St. Louis.
Okay.
So like eventually, sometime there was crime in the area. He had his mail stolen once or twice.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So we would get sirens in the background sometimes. It was never obviously coming to pick him up, but. Every once in a while I get a siren. So that was the worst interruption we ever had, was like, that.
Yeah. For me, I mean, occasionally it's the car stuff, but also just like kids and so on and so forth. Like we'll jump in periodically and it's like, oh man, like I'll spare you the details, but let's continue.
Yeah. I will say, if I do a daytime cast, sometimes kids jump in, but usually if I do nighttime casts, they're all asleep. It's all good.
Yeah.
So Legend of Zelda, your first experience was, you said A Link to the Past was kind of your first full foray, but you did play the original.
I messed around a little bit. Like some of my friends had the original. I like played for like 10 minutes here and there. Same thing with Link's Awakening, where it's just like, oh, cool. Like I remember like a kid, I was like, I feel like after I played Link to the Past, like a kid I was like watching or something, like, or babysitting. I don't know. They had like Link's Awakening. I screwed with it for like 10 minutes or something like that. Like, but it was really, Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time. And then after college, I got really into retro gaming, and like sort of like, especially like after college, like I graduated in 2008. So like there's this huge like economic depression, and I had a film degree, so it's hard to find work. So it's like a lot of like, I feel like a lot of millennials, especially like older millennials like myself, were like at that point in time kind of like looking to the past, looking to nostalgia. So like I played
good times, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I played like Majora's Mask, and then jumped to Twilight Princess, which like when you're used to N64 games and then you jump to like Twilight Princess, you're like, oh my god, like these are the best graphics.
Wii or GameCube? Wii or GameCube?
GameCube.
Okay.
Even though like the PS3 was out for years and years and years, like seeing a GameCube game, I was like, wow. And then I simultaneously played Link's Awakening while I was playing Twilight Princess. And then I did Oracle of Ages, and then started playing Oracle of Seasons, but then I had played so many Zelda games back to back, I kind of burned out, and then jumped back into Oracle of Seasons like years later and finished it.
Zelda fatigue is definitely real.
I mean, I played like 4 in a row, so it was like, it was a lot. It was a lot.
And this is kind of a subjective question, I suppose, especially since when you compare 2D to 3D, it makes a difference. But where do you think that 2D Zelda peaks, and where do you think that 3D Zelda peaked?
I don't know.
Or if it hasn't yet.
When's the last time we really had like a 2D Zelda game?
Well, I mean, I guess, do you consider the new Link's Awakening a 2D Zelda? Because it is more two-dimensional than
the gameplay is 2D, and
that's what I mean. Like, I guess 2D gameplay versus 3D gameplay. Because one of them does play more top-down, the other one plays more. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's a 3D game, but it's like it plays like a 2D game with the angle that you're looking at, and also like the gameplay mechanics are lifted from a 2D game where it's like, okay, I can see the screen I'm on. Where do I like explore on the screen that I can see, versus like I'm in a 3D world? What can I see in front of me? Let me turn around and look and like really explore.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, have they, other than like the Four Swords games and like the Triforce Hero whatever stuff? Like,
what about Link Between Worlds?
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, that was a solid one too. I think. I don't know. I don't know if it necessarily like peaked anywhere in particular with the 2D stuff. I think they all have their own thing to offer. I mean, obviously the NES ones are kind of rudimentary, but then you get into the Link's Awakening, and it's like a lot of fun. And then like the Seasons game, or the Oracle of Seasons and Ages really like did a lot with the Game Boy Color, and like it looked really nice comparatively to Link's Awakening, and the gameplay was solid. But Link Between Worlds was also a lot of fun, and they was kind of like when Nintendo was experimenting with that more, I don't want to say open world like Breath of the Wild, but it's like you didn't get items in dungeons. You had to rent them, and you could do dungeons in almost any order, and it was a little bit more open. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to say that it peaked. Same thing with like the 3D stuff, where it's like, if you were to ask me beforehand, before Breath of the Wild, where 3D peaked, I would probably have an answer for you. But like
it could be a sign. You could have multiple peaks and valleys.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't play Wind Waker when it came out. I didn't play it until like 2 years ago, and I thought it was okay. Like I thought it was like just a solid B. Like it was like okay. It was good. It was a good game. But like I like Twilight Princess a lot more. But then after that, with 3D stuff, you get like the DS games, which kind of sucked, and then you get
because you got but that's also the top down. So I don't know if those count as 3D or like pseudo.
Yeah, I guess they're kind of
Isn't it really till you get to like Ocarina of Time 3D that you really get portable 3D Zelda?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like the from what I recall, like playing Spirit Tracks and such, it was like definitely like a 2D game, but like the camera was in a little bit.
Is it isometric, or was it
isometric? It was less like you go onto a screen and you see everything on that screen, like Link to the Past would be, and more so like you're in an area and you move through that area more fluidly. So it kind of has a feel like it's sort of in between. But it is really more of a 2D game ultimately. Like the boss battles were 3D, like from a perspective, often from a perspective where you'd be like a little bit lower with the camera and stuff, if I remember properly.
Obviously, the series peaked with Spirit Tracks. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think like Spirit Tracks, like Skyward Sword. Like Skyward Sword's a good game, but it wasn't like I never really felt the need to go back and play it again, and it was kind of like in a big lull for a long time. And then Breath of the Wild was supposed to be primarily on the Wii U, and then they went the whole lifetime of that system really without being released. And you know what I mean? Like, so it was like it could have at that point in time, I would be more willing to be like, yeah, Zelda kind of needs a refresh now. But then that's exactly what it got. So I don't know.
So, in my opinion, like as far as 2D Zelda goes, there are two peaks in 2D Zelda, in my opinion. The first peak was obviously A Link to the Past. Personally, I think that was their best one of the first three. And it shows because they had all that time to really mature the game from the first two games to that one. And it is more open world, but it isn't quite as open where you can do things in any order you want. I don't, because there's a point where once you get to that point, like that is, the Dark World. I don't want to give too many spoilers away for people that haven't played it, but in order to get to that
game,
I know it is, but who knows what Nintendo will do in the future. Because that really changed the game, in my opinion, for the adventure genre, the adventure RPG. And then my second favorite 2D game in the series is probably Minish Cap, because it's just so different.
Oh yeah, Minish Cap. Minish Cap was great.
Like that was a solid Game Boy Advance game. It's one of the best, in my opinion.
Yeah, I often forget about Minish Cap, but that was a really, really good game.
And we might never get another game like that, because I don't know if the Nintendo Capcom relationship is as good as it was back then.
I was thinking about that relationship, because I was thinking Capcom did the
Oracle games. Yep.
And then they went on to do Minish Cap, but it's like, that would be like, I wonder if that relationship would have continued. Like, what maybe they were like starting to work on something else, but then the partnership fell apart, or maybe the contract was just up or something. That'd be really interesting to see, look into like what else did Capcom have worked, like planned, or it could have been like Nintendo was just like, okay, we're doing some Game Boy Color games. Okay, I'm commissioning one Game Boy Advance game. You know what I mean? Like you don't really know what their contract was like. and the relationship was like. So like it could have been that was it, or maybe they had something else that we were thinking about. Never got
Can you
to.
imagine Capcom trying to pitch the Oracle games to Nintendo? Like, oh yeah, these are gonna be like 3 interconnected games,
Yeah.
and they're gonna have 3 different things going on with passwords across the board. Nintendo's like, what are you smoking?
I wonder though, like I wonder if they took that concept to Capcom, or if Capcom came up with that concept themselves, because it was Capcom developed. But I would imagine like Nintendo probably. Obviously they were
almost wanted
involved.
to Pokemon the Zelda series, maybe, or they wanted to branch out into multiple games of the same release.
That's interesting. That's something that, like I said, I've been thinking about recently. I'd like to dive into a little bit more and kind of better understand what that relationship was exactly. You know, how much back and forth was there between Capcom and Nintendo on those Zelda titles?
Because the way I look at it, I figure probably they handed off the portable development to Capcom for a little while. Because if you look, like they did Majora's Mask the year before the Oracle games. Then after that, you had Four Swords and Wind Waker and Four Swords Adventures. You know, they did all the console games, and then they handed off like 3 essentially portable games to Capcom.
Did Capcom have anything to do with Four Swords?
No. Four Swords Adventures. I forgot about that one. That was like a top-down remake of Link to the Past with also the Game Boy Advance connectivity. I'm thinking of the other one, the other Four Swords game. There's 2 different Four Swords games, and it always throws me off.
Yeah, I was never a big Four Swords fan. I had played like one on the GameCube for a little bit, but it just, I don't know. I never like dove in really hard.
It's not, in my opinion, the Four Swords game might be the weakest in both the 2D and 3D. But I also think that the Triforce Heroes did a good job of taking that concept and modernizing it.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if Capcom had any involvement.
I don't think they did.
They probably did not. No.
So then where do you land on Breath of the Wild? Was it a positive step forward, or was it like a step to the left, like laterally they just moved kind of to a different column? Where are you at with Breath of the Wild?
I loved it. I mean, I think it's one of the best games ever made. I know a lot of people were like, this isn't Zelda because it's not the same dungeons. I want these big giant dungeons that I can explore for hours. And I was like, that's cool. You know, there were other people like, oh, like Zelda's all about the music. You know, so Zelda means something different to everybody, right? So, you know, for some people, it's just like, I play Zelda for these dungeons. And some people are like, the Zelda music is what I care about. And then they were mad that there wasn't a ton of music, which of course makes sense, that it would be ambience, like accented by music and cutscenes, or when certain enemies appear or whatever, right? It would just be more like you're in the wild. But for me, Zelda was always really about exploration.
The adventure.
Yeah, the adventure, the exploration, right? So, like, I'm cool with like doing little mini dungeons. Like I kind of have like dungeon fatigue. Like some of the bigger, harder ones, like I'll go through and it's like after like an hour, like a good dungeon for me is like an hour to an hour and a half. Most Zelda dungeons take me about 2 hours to do. So there's about a half hour toward the end where I'm just done. Like for most Zelda dungeons. And that's just the way that I play, where it's just like I don't like playing for 3 hours at a time. You know, I like playing for like an hour, hour and a half, and then like go on to something else. So for me, those little mini dungeons were great. They were all over the place. They always offered something somewhat new. You know, it was a ton of fun to find them. It was a ton of fun to, some more engine noises in the background, a ton of fun to explore. So for me, like there's just so much exploration.
Yeah, I have to say, the did you say vroom 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 vroom?
Yeah, vroom 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 vroom. Yeah, they're all over the place.
For me, I just like seeing Zelda kind of explore different concepts over the years. Like it's one of those series that seems to always evolve in different directions, and sometimes I like it and sometimes I don't. So I would never discourage them from trying different things.
Yeah,
but I don't want them to sit in one lobby too long, if that makes sense.
I think that Breath of the Wild 2, it needs to be significantly different enough that it's its own thing. Obviously it'll still be using the same engine, so it's like it'll be similar, but there needs to be something that's different, either more cohesive, not cohesive, but more like maybe more focused on the story, or just something that differentiates it from Breath of the Wild, right? So it's not just like you're doing the same thing in the same place. Or you're going to new places, which of course you would imagine they would obviously have you do, but like it's just some other element that Breath of the Wild didn't have or lacked that it throws into the mix.
Do you want to see any time-based elements come back, like what we had in Majora's Mask?
I don't really care one way or another. Like, if it's done well, cool. You know, if it's not, whatever. I imagine it probably seems just based on the trailers, it'll be like a darker game, kind of like what Majora's Mask was. And it often feels like, you know, sequels, when you have like a masterpiece that's an original one, with the sequel, like one of the directions you can go is a little darker to have a little something different. And I kind of get the vibe that's what they're doing for this particular title.
Because they haven't released much of the story yet.
No, not really. But yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know. Like I was, by the time Skyward Sword came around, like, so you had these two games, you had like Skyward Sword and you had Link Between Worlds, and they were both attempting to find ways to break the Zelda monotony, the formula, not just kind of do the same thing over again, right? So Skyward Sword, you had the like stamina gauge, and you were flying around, and the whole idea was like the whole area was a puzzle. It wasn't just you explore an area and then get to the dungeon and that's when you do puzzles. It's like from start to finish you're constantly puzzling. And then of course, as we already talked, Link Between Worlds had like the dungeon and item system being more like free, right? But it was kind of like, you know, it's kind of like when you have a script or a paper or essay or a thesis or whatever, and you get some critiques, and it's like you don't really want to listen to the critiques, so you change some words, you change a sentence or two, you know, that makes it kind of different. But what you really need to do is move it to the side and re-outline and then rewrite, right?
Yeah.
So it felt like they were trying to do something new, but they weren't committing to it. Like they didn't quite want to really do something new. And that's kind of what it felt like. They were like, okay, they were decent games, but you know, it wasn't anything like groundbreaking. And I think that's kind of what we needed at that point in time, especially when those games came out. It's just the action adventure genre had moved so far beyond
where they were at.
Zelda. Yeah. So it's like seeing Skyward Sword for what it was at the time. Like I remember, like, I don't know if it like some Skyrim game or something that came out around the time. It's like, and people were like, wow, like this is what an adventure game should be like, you know? And obviously it's a much different game than Zelda, but still people were like, oh wow, we're getting these crazy new titles and like Zelda's in the past, right? So Breath of the Wild, for me, I'm happy that they like shook Zelda totally just to its core. And we're like, okay, what if he can
climb a mountain?
What if he can climb? What if he can go here when normally you can't go here? What if you can fly around? What if you could just screw with physics? What if, you know, because normally in Zelda, it's like you don't have a ton of weapons. You have like 5 weapons, 10 weapons, whatever. And
or at least there's only 5 that are actually useful.
Yeah. And then it's like, what if they break? Like it's like everything that they were like, well, what if this thing that we do that we would never want to do, that we do it anyways? Like that's what it felt like, and that's why I liked it, because it was like it was Zelda, but it was also a totally fresh approach to Zelda without trying to be like, oh, I don't really want to, you know, don't really want to change. That's what it felt like for me, anyways. Okay, I've rambled enough. I'm done.
Breath of the Wild, what I will say, the positives in my opinion about Breath of the Wild, that they really did a good job of navigating the waters of what a Western RPG looks like, because it really did kind of transform Zelda into more of a Western RPG style, but still retained a lot of the elements of Zelda. The thing that I thought they did a really good job with was not making mandatory filler. Because I think that's an issue that Zelda has had in the past. Like, for example, the fetch quest at the end of Wind Waker. The one thing that I really disliked about Wind Waker was the fetch quest for Tingle, where it's like the Triforks, and then like not only that, but having to change the wind direction on the GameCube was such a slog.
Yeah, so I had never I had played Wind Waker on the GameCube
Right.
only for like Hard4Games purposes, where it's like we got that one pre-release version, or I was like doing something specific with the game and needed to capture footage, and it is hell trying to change the direction. And it's so like the controls are just and it's like you said, it's a slog. So like I played it start to finish on the Wii U, which
That's
is
a much better experience.
yeah, it's the same game, but it's streamlined. The Triforce quest is really minimized.
Yep.
The controls for the changing the wind are a little bit easier, but still.
Well, the Swift Sail makes it easier.
Yeah, I don't
Easier.
even know if I got that. I'm not even sure. I think like
the Swift Sail auto changes the direction of the wind.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yeah. So like you literally is like, and it's kind of funny because it's super easy to miss if you don't know where it is. Like even Nintendo put out a blurb that said, "Hey, by the way, there's this Swift Sail thing you need to go get."
Yeah, I think maybe I knew about it, but didn't end up getting. I don't know exactly. Like so when I was playing on the Wii U, it was primarily because I wanted to be able to get start to finish in the game because I kept having to do content regarding Wind Waker, but I had never played the full thing.
Yeah.
So it was kind of this thing where it's like, people would be like, "Oh, these cool beta elements, this and that, whatever." I'm like, "Oh, I've never played it. Sorry." Like, but it's Zelda and it's like beloved, so it's like kind of had to. So my experience with it was I did as minimalistic side quests as I possibly could to get through the game. And I did only the ones I thought would be fun. And I didn't like grind and stuff or other things. Like I did some other stuff to get extra magic. And if I happen upon an island and I'm like, oh, that would be cool. Like, I did it. But I didn't really go super far out of my way in that game. And even like the Triforce quest or whatever it's called was reduced in the Wii U version, and I still hated
significantly.
it. Like I still hated it though. Like it was
just finding the gems to buy it was like, oh no.
Yeah. So oh yeah, you know what I also did? Like I think
I'm sorry, not gems. I'm like as bad as that guy that says the rubies in the CDI games. Yeah.
So I think what you have to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to like basically constantly go back to Tingle and like pay for right. So I just looked up where to go instead of dealing with Tingle at all. Is what I did.
You still have to deal with him though. Like you can't not pay him. You have to pay him though, don't you, to get the?
Did I? I might have maybe.
Well, I think maybe it was because I'm thinking back now on the GameCube version. I don't think you could actually get what your like get to the point on the map without him unlocking it for you. Essentially. Okay. So maybe that's what changed.
Maybe that changed in the Wii U version. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but I remember skipping a lot of what you were supposed to do in an already nerfed quest. Yeah. And I remember still disliking it.
I wish they would have done more with the underwater Hyrule because I thought that was one of the coolest parts
of
the
game. That was amazing. That was really cool. I mean, not to, bash on Wind Waker too much. I thought it was like like I said, like a good, like a B, like it was like, okay, or it was a good game, but whatever. Like, I don't know. A lot of exploration for me is like going across a landmass and looking in the little nooks and crannies. So like having to change the wind constantly and back and forth and whatever. It just, I don't know.
I think the strongest and weakest element of this game is the same thing. It's the ocean.
Yeah. I mean, like, oh, sorry, go on.
It's like this big giant open space with nothing in between the islands except for, you could do a little bit of fishing, a little bit of whatever. Yeah. But like overall, it's the strongest part of the game because it's the whole theme of it and it fits. And at the same time, it's the weakest because you spend so much time doing nothing in the water but traveling between islands.
Yeah. I mean, there were some great moments when like you're fighting enemies or little like island mini boss things in your boat. And it's, there's some pretty cool stuff, but there's also a lot of like slog in between, It's just
that's probably my best example of slog that I think Breath of the Wild does a good job eliminating. Yeah. Is that Triforce quest and just the sailing wind directions like that. That for me it's actually the reason I put Wind Waker is one of my favorite Zelda games, but it's the reason I put it down so much because the in between parts of Wind Waker, at least on the original GameCube version, were just so dry.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people that I speak to are like, "Oh, I love Wind Waker so much, but I just
I do.
hated X, Y, and Z." But it's just like, I don't know. For me, it just penetrated enough of the experience for me to just kind of dismiss the game as not being great. But
I'm not 25, 35. What am I doing? How did you feel about the Zelda 35?
I mean, was there a Zelda 35?
Technically, yes.
I mean,
you get the Game and Watch. Jeez.
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. I forgot about that briefly. I was thinking more of the Joy-Cons, and my comment was more supposed to be sarcasm, where it's like they didn't really do a ton. I mean, I felt like all the fans are always thinking about like, oh my god, anniversary, and they did care about the Skyward Sword 25 because they like kind of incorporated that into the game a little bit and did like concerts and whatever. But I think, like, you know, based on Twitter, like every time you go on Twitter, it's like, oh my god, it's the 10-year anniversary of X game. Oh, and it's like, what? Like every day is an anniversary for something, and every fan makes like it's the biggest deal in the world.
Yeah, but there's some series that are more iconic than others, like Mario, Zelda. Those are iconic.
Yeah, but Nintendo, what likely happened is that they realized the fans cared about the 35th anniversary and slopped something together. I mean, it's a cool little device, but I mean, how many ways can you play these games? Like 1,000 different ways to play the original Zelda? I mean, it's not anything really that special other than just a little piece of shelf candy.
Right.
The Joy-Cons are cool. You know, I'm more into like, you know, like, oh, these are some cool controllers, what have you. I mean, that's neat. That's something you'll continuously use, you know. I don't know. I think it was cool. I just not what I was hoping for.
Now, what if Nintendo would have released an add-on where you could use the Wii controller to play Skyward Sword on your Switch?
That would be interesting. Although kind of unnecessary because the Joy-Cons are way better Wii controllers anyways, aren't they?
Well, Wii Motion Plus, I think, is slightly better.
Better than the Joy-Cons?
In the ways that it would be necessary for Skyward Sword.
Okay. I haven't played Skyward Sword with the Switch controller. So I'm working on a video right now that is all about Skyward Sword modding. And so I've been playing it actually for the first time ever using a Switch emulator, which I didn't even know existed.
Yep.
So I've been using the Switch emulator, and I couldn't get my Hori. This thing, it was recognized by the emulator, but it wouldn't allow me to input any commands. It wouldn't allow me to like tell it what buttons to do what. So I have to use an Xbox 360 controller, unfortunately. So I'm playing Skyward Sword, which is perfectly fine. It has all the same buttons. They're just labeled slightly different. So I've been playing Skyward Sword on emulator with an Xbox 360 controller. So I can't speak for the Joy-Cons and how they actually function.
I bet you that Switch emulator is going to get a cease and desist about the time the Steam Deck releases.
You think so? Just because
I think so.
Putting it on. Can you cease and desist an emulator? I always thought emulators were fair game.
Well, I don't know if they'll be able to cease and desist the emulator, but it'll definitely be close enough to the Switch, because I think right now proprietary emulation of a modern or
currently active,
exactly. I think that's usually the breaking point for an emulation. Like the PS3 would be okay to emulate. I'm sure there'd be no issue. Like Sony wouldn't like it, but they wouldn't. There's not much they would. They're not competing with anybody. The PS3's been out for
money on trying
a lot.
To get rid of
exactly.
Yeah.
But the Switch is still new. The Switch is still selling. Can you imagine if somebody had put that emulator on the Steam Deck and you could run Nintendo games in 4K?
Yeah, I mean,
Nintendo. I mean, like
talking about it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not like a lawyer, so I don't know legally what they could do, if anything. But I would imagine they would get pretty annoyed.
Like, I know it would not be like the mainstream everybody doing it, but the fact that a Nintendo game could run portably on a portable device in 4K at all would be enough for Nintendo to be like, all right, we need to get this thing shut down.
Yeah. And I mean, the emulator too has options where it's like you can increase frame rate based on your processing power and this and that. So like, you kind of get these, like you said, like in 4K or whatever. You can kind of get these Switch games for, you know, running better than you can on the Switch. You know, considering it's more limited hardware.
I was surprised how quickly games for the Switch were able to be dumped, because
I don't even know how that works, but
I think you would have to have a jailbroken device. Because I know right when they started jailbreaking the devices, like when they found that hardware, the hardware method to, I'm not going to delve too deep in it. I don't want Nintendo sending me any kind of stuff. But once that hardware hack came about, I think they were able to link it up with their computer and use the actual cartridge slot on the Switch to actually dump the games.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was surprised that something, especially like Skyward Sword HD, which I'm playing only for the purposes of the video, and it will promptly delete.
And you own the game.
I do not. No.
Oh, you don't?
I own Skyward Sword.
Okay.
I don't own
we'll just leave
Skyward
it there.
Sword HD. But yeah, I was surprised how quickly a game like that would even become available. It's kind of
it's ridiculous. Like
yeah.
I just can't understand how the community can be faster than the actual devs that made the console.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
You could almost say it's the Breath of the Wild. No,
you could say.
All right. So the next thing I wanted to kind of talk about is how long term are most of these Zelda games. Do you think Nintendo with these remakes is actually having a negative impact on the series and the ability to go back and play them? Because if you have the option between Wind Waker and Wind Waker HD, which one are you going to play? Probably HD. And then does that also weaken the original source material, even though it's different? They are slightly different. And you're not actually going back and playing the same exact game on the Wii U.
I mean, you got to keep in mind that 99% of their fan base is not going to go out and get a GameCube. Is not going to emulate. Is not going to find the original game. Yeah, retro gaming is really popular, but I mean, you got to take a look at the Switch's install base and kind of go from there, right? So I wouldn't say it necessarily weakens the original game necessarily. You know, part of the reason why I like the Switch is because, you know, I'm playing all of these. We've discussed this before, where it's like, as a parent, it's hard to play anything not portable, because it's like you might get 5 minutes, you might get 10 minutes, you might get an hour, you might get 2 minutes, you know. So it's like setting up a console is a pain in the ass you don't want to deal with. So I've been able to play all of these PlayStation 1 RPGs that I never got to back in the day, right? So it's like I just played through Grandia. I'm playing through Saga Frontier right now. I'm going to move on to Legend of Mana, which I did play back in the day, but I wanted to play again for so long. Never got around to it because I didn't want to set up my PS3 or my PS1 or whatever, you know. So it's like, really, convenience is king.
Oh yeah.
If it's a good enough port or remake or whatever, convenience kind of trumps everything in terms of the business decision. So it's like, here's this game. We created this game. No one's actively buying this game. We have this IP we're sitting on, and we could be making money off of it. It costs less to do a remaster than it does to make a great game from the ground up. It's shorter, especially since, I mean, you got to keep in mind Breath of the Wild 2. Breath of the Wild 1 came out in 2016, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, no.
Pretty sure.
The Switch launched in 2017, right?
No.
I'm pretty sure the Switch hit it was 2017.
All right. Maybe.
March. I think it was March 2017.
Yeah, you might be right on that, actually.
The Breath of the Wild would have been March 2017.
Okay. I was thinking 2016 because my son was born in 2016. I remember playing it when he was a baby, but he was also born in December. So it was 2017 pretty quick.
Yeah.
Regardless, it's been 4 years, right?
Yes.
So you have 4 years, probably another year till you get Breath of the Wild 2. So it's like 5 years between, games. So what are they going to do in the interim with this series to keep people active and thinking about
Calamity of Ganon?
Yeah, I mean...
wait, not Calamity of Ganon. What did I just say? Oh gosh.
I know what you're talking about. The
The
Hyrule Warriors, right?
yeah, the Warriors frame. No, it's the Dynasty Warriors thing.
Yeah, Age of Calamity.
Age of Calamity.
Yeah.
Calamity Ganon is the
Yeah.
Ganon, but yeah,
Yeah,
Age of
actually, I
Calamity.
want
Oh
to
my
play that.
gosh.
As a matter of fact, I'm really curious about it. But yeah, so they have DLC, they have Age of Calamity, they brought the other Hyrule Warriors game over to Switch. Like it's there's just stuff they're going to be doing with the franchise in between. I don't think it necessarily weakens it. It's not like it's not to the extent of like Mario, where it's like Mario's in everything, where it's like Mario Tennis, Mario this, Mario that, Mario Party, blah blah. But
Although Link's in Mario Kart.
Yeah, I mean technically, yeah, but
it's not like Donkey Kong where he's just appearing aside next to Mario in every game for like 2 decades with no games of his own.
But you also got to keep in mind that even with this saturation of Mario stuff,
it still sells.
That Mario stuff sells. So I mean, like the weakening of the franchise is only in the mind of the hardcore, basically, right? Like, so for example, like my wife and I, most of my friends love craft beer, right? We go to the brewery. It's amazing. Like you'll get like just a 15, 16, 18% imperial bourbon barrel aged stout.
I thought you were going to say 18 ounce. 18 and I was going to be like, oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it's like, it's be a very, very big boy for that amount of alcohol. But,
well, no, they do 24 ounce every once in a while. Some places do.
Yeah, but not for that kind of beer. I mean,
that's true.
If you have the higher the percentage, they normally have like a sort of a tulip if it's for like really high percentage or something a little bit shorter. But regardless of that, normally you have like lagers and like huge big things. Point is that it's easy to be like, oh man, like everyone drinking, like Miller Lite, whatever, blah, blah, like those idiots don't know what they're talking about. But it's like the Miller Lite sells better than everything that I'm drinking, right? So the issue is only in the mind of the enthusiast.
Fair.
Right? Same thing with Zelda stuff. They could, Mario stuff. Oh, they're really weakening Mario by putting in these party games. Oh, not really. You still went out and bought Odyssey, or whoever I'm imaginarily talking to. Point is that it, it's fine. Whatever. Really sell this stuff. Just make sure that it's of a certain quality, basically.
What's your favorite craft beer?
That's hard to determine. I mean, here, let me go on my Untapped. Right here.
I've been to I'm sure you've been to a few breweries, but I went to the Bell's Brewery out in the west side of Michigan.
Yeah, at Kalamazoo.
That's actually the one we went to was the bigger of the Kalamazoo one is the one most people go to, but we went to the one. It's like slightly east. I can't remember what it's the bigger brewery tour than the other one. Trying to think.
I've actually never been to Bell's. I probably should make a pilgrimage out there.
I think you got a buddy right here that might go with you.
Who? You?
Bell's
or someone on the chat? Hell yeah, Bell's Brew.
I'm pretty sure it's John telling you, let's go.
John. Yeah.
I think it's like it's a weird name. I can't think of what it's called though, because we went there. We actually went there for a bachelor party.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And we got to tour the brewery.
Okay, so I pulled up. So I use Untapped, which is exactly for purposes like this, where someone asks me a question when I've rated like 400 beers on this thing. Might have a bit of a problem, but regardless, you're often like, what was that beer that I was drinking that I really liked? So it's like, now you can kind of like, no. So there's a local brewery near my place called Urban Rest that did an imperial, I think it's bourbon barrel aged stout. It's like sort of a, it was an imperial double stout called Will We Ever Hug Again? And this was in the middle of like quarantine, right?
I'll look this up.
It's like Will We Ever Hug Again? It was so topical at the time, by Urban Rest Brewing, and it was the only one I've ever given a 5 out of 5.
Oh wow.
So it's the one single beer I've given that high of a rating. I told my wife if I were to ever rate a beer a 5, I would have to have seen God when I drank it, and I think I may have. Aside from that, Underground Mountain Brown by Founders. Oh,
Founders
amazing.
does some good stuff.
Yeah, they do. CBS by Founders, Dragon's Milk Triple Mash.
You like the Dragon's Milk? I didn't have a taste for that, but I haven't had it in like a decade.
Not regular Dragon's Milk.
Okay.
The regular Dragon's Milk is just as a stout. It's kind of thin tasting for me. A lot of their variants are really good. Their Triple Mash was a 17 or 18% stout. So like it was kind of like you're kind of rating it where you're like balancing the insane alcohol content with how they balance that out with flavor. A lot of stouts are in my top, but there's also a lot of like IPAs and like what was it, like East Coast IPAs, like the hazy IPAs are really good. If you ever had any Old Nation stuff like Boss Tweed or M43?
I think I've had M43.
Yeah,
I think I've had that one.
Like a lot of that stuff as well. Anyways, I mean, I like all sorts of beer, but like my higher ratings tend to be for like really nice IPAs and stouts. But I like a lot of everything, honestly, just as long as it's well done.
This is where I went. Comstock.
Okay.
Huh. Yeah, it's just like maybe I don't know, like maybe 10, 20 miles away from Kalamazoo. It was so close because we ended up going from the Comstock Brewery to the actual like original place in Kalamazoo where they started it in like that little bar, which is not so little anymore.
Yeah, I imagine.
But they make good stuff. They're actually the biggest, like, because there's like 3 different phases of, there's like micro brewery, and then there's like something in between, and then there's like the major distributors like, you know, Anheuser-Busch and whatnot.
Yeah,
they're in like that middle category, and they're technically the biggest of that middle category.
Really?
I believe that's the case.
If you ever get the chance to go up to Traverse City, by the way, their brewery is like every corner.
Yeah,
they have some really good stuff up there.
Yeah, and that brings me to my next point. Why doesn't Zelda have more beer? No,
well, it's Nintendo. They'd censor the hell out of literally everything.
I think it would be kind of interesting to see Link having impacts from various things that would be like, think about it, like lore accurate for that type of time period for adventure RPGs. Yeah. There would be, you know, different drinks and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like if I remember properly, like the Resistance or whatever it was in Twilight Princess, like the woman that ran a bar. I think it was a bar, if I remember properly. It's been a while since I played Twilight Princess, but there's a little bit of that here and there, but not a ton. Never really the focus, you know.
No, it's not the focus, but to me, it's like growing up on Zelda, I almost feel like it'd be fun to see some more of that kind of stuff in Zelda, although it would kind of change the franchise.
Yeah, no, I love when a lot of the SNES titles, I can't remember if it was like Chrono Trigger or one of the other like RPGs from back in the day, where it's like someone had too much sugar the night before. And that's what the US translation was. They had too much sugar, so they weren't feeling very well.
Probably one of the best bad like conversions from a different source to a Nintendo product was what's that one that Microsoft did years ago? It was Maniac Mansion.
Oh yeah,
where they had to change like a bunch of lines, and like there were some lines in there like they even sourced in an article from back when it came out. I'd found the article, and essentially there were some lines that they were like, why didn't they change this line? But they spent so much time changing this line over here. It's like, this doesn't make any sense.
A lot of it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I guess the next question for Zelda, and you can stop me if you think it's a dumb question, but what would be your perfect Breath of the Wild 2 scenario?
Like, what would I hope it to be?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think they're already not going in the direction I originally was hoping for, to be honest with you. I was hoping that it could be a sort of a situation where you're kind of simultaneously playing as Link and Zelda. And I got that impression from that first trailer where they were together. Telma's Bar. So I thought it'd be kind of cool if it was like, you know, there's a lot of like one thing Zelda hasn't really done a ton of, but has experimented with in the past is sort of like 2-player puzzling. And it wouldn't necessarily have to be 2-player, like in the sense of like the 4 swords, but like there's that part in Majora's Mask where I can't remember, like the adult that was turned into a kid, and you need to like go into that like the thieves' hideout, and you have to like swap between the characters, Link and this other character.
Yeah.
I think his name begins with a K. I can't recall, but basically it's sort of like this sort of 2-character puzzling, right? Another one like or like a Lost Vikings, right? For DOS and Genesis and SNES, or like Swagman for the PS1. Like you have these 2-player puzzling. I thought that would be so cool if you could like back and forth between Zelda and Link at certain times, where you have the option to play as Zelda, which has been like a long requested in by the fan base, but you can also play as Link or simultaneously,
or like this game, Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. Have you seen that one yet?
Yeah.
Where you're like, you actually have like in certain parts of the game, it's like this is the whole game. You could have it where you have the twin sticks and like move one character with one with the other.
Yeah, it wouldn't necessarily have to be as complicated as that, where maybe it was just like a trigger push and like you switch to the other character, or a second player could jump in and go to split screen to like as you complete puzzles. I thought that would be pretty cool, but I think that's definitely not the direction they're going into. I think Zelda's going to get captured or whatever, fall down a hole or whatever she does. I think that's even in the second trailer she gets offed. But yeah, that's kind of what I was hoping for. I thought it'd be kind of neat. But
the ads. Now I'm concerned. Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm not sure.
Link, it's your cousin Tingle. I was wondering if you wanted to go bowling.
Yeah.
I don't think that's gonna happen, but yeah, I kind of got the hint, the thought that maybe they would do something like that, because even on our thumbnail, I've got that very the theatrical looking thing where it's got Link and Zelda together in that very like dire looking situation, and it seems like they're working together. But like you're saying, it seems like Nintendo is probably going to go the other way.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a little funky. I think that that image you have is from Breath of the Wild, the first one, though.
I don't think so. I searched Breath of the Wild 2 when I found that.
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure that's when like Hyrule falls, and she's like sobbing and he's all beat up.
See, I'm looking. Yeah, no, this is Breath of the Wild 2. I'll show you. Yeah, let me see. It says Breath of the Wild 2 when I searched it.
I don't think so.
Maybe they just stole that artwork. I don't know. Whatever.
Link's hair is different. Breath of the Wild 2, Zelda's only shown with her short hair too. So
yeah, you know what? They might have just used old.
That's Breath of the Wild 1.
Oh well, whatever.
Yeah, it's all good. But yeah, I don't know. Like I thought, like, okay, well, if you're gonna do something totally different, like you did with Breath of the Wild 1, like why not throw a total curveball and just have it sort of be like a sort of 2-playery thing where you can switch between characters, etc. But I don't think they're going to do any of that, so I don't really know what to expect after that, because that was kind of my main big prediction. I don't know what it's going to be now. Like I kind of have a feeling it's just going to be the same world, but you can go into the sky and there's a whole new world up there and you have different techniques. I think there's got to be something different aside from that. I just don't know what it's going to be.
I personally, and I know this is probably never going to happen, but I would love it if Nintendo just took the whole like Zelda timeline and like you could buy each game in the series and play it like through each different timeline in the series. Because I think that'd be really cool to see how the Zelda, because they have the actual Zelda timeline in the Zelda Historia book, right? I would love to be able to play like one line of succession through all the way to see the final scenario, because it'd be cool to see what Nintendo's vision is of the final ending of each of these different timelines.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the branch, it also splits off, so you wouldn't really be able to go start to finish. Actually,
well, no, but you could choose which way to go with each one, right?
Yeah.
Because at each branching point,
yeah, you could decide which branches you want to go on.
I think it'd be fun.
One of the things that reminds me too that kind of annoyed me with Skyward Sword was like, this is the very first thing. This is the beginning. And it's like, well, hang on. Wasn't there like a war down on Earth? Like, wouldn't that be the beginning?
Right.
And
exactly.
Then it was also like the sword is like kind of imbued with the spirit of this Fi character where what happened to her, like
Still not as annoying as Navi though.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I just it was okay with Navi. Like she only did that like occasionally. Like if he like would stop the entire action to give you pages of dialogue, and you're like, oh my god, it was monologue really. Yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings, but it just kind of felt like it was built up to be this like crazy, like this is how it all began, and then like the end. Like you're fighting Garahim, and then Demise is the final boss, and you're like, who is this guy? Like what the hell? Like there's no like build up for him. Like you're just like, okay, I guess his soul becomes Ganon. I guess like
it is bizarre.
Like, and it's like, okay, this is the beginning of everything, I suppose. Cool. All right, you blew it. Like for putting it in the position that it was put in. I think that's why I disliked Skyward Sword more than like some of the other reasons, it being like archaic for the time it came out. I think it was more so like you built it up to be this like huge centerpiece, and it was just kind of what the hell. Like
I tend to agree with you on that.
Yeah, it failed for where it was supposed to be in the timeline, if that makes sense, I guess.
I just put the link to the timeline in the chat if anybody wants to look at it while we're talking about it. I can't get it to come up in any kind of like good clarity on the stream, so I'm not going to even try. It does not look. It does. Here, I'll show you. It does not look good enough to put on the stream.
Yeah,
it's too small. But I guess that's my next question is from a story standpoint, just straight story and lore. What's your favorite, I guess, story start to finish in the Zelda series?
I mean, story has never been like the most intricate thing in Zelda, but I mean, it's kind of more about like almost like themes, really.
Yeah.
It's kind of, this is kind of a cop out, but it's kind of a three-way tie for me. Like, I don't know, like obviously with like Ocarina of Time, it was kind of like a triple whammy for me. So like, it came out when I was in 8th grade, kind of when you're in between childhood and teenagehood. Right. So you're kind of been through most of puberty, and like you're about to go into high school, and like suddenly things are different. And it was a story about a boy who lost his childhood, and he just kind of suddenly became an adult. So it kind of resonated with a lot of people that were about my age when they played it. And also you're dealing with, it's your first, this beloved series, and it's going from 2D to 3D. It's like growing up, like it's so it was kind of a multiple tiered thing. And then I don't know, the theme of Ocarina of Time I thought was great. The story, I mean, it's kind of here nor there. Like it's a thin story, right? But the theme was fantastic. Majora's Mask, kind of similar thing, where it was more more theme and sort of mood, really, more than anything. But it wasn't so much the story, right? The story was just kind of thin. It was okay. It was good,
There was more of a story there than Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
To be fair, like it definitely was pushed more from a story standpoint.
Yeah, but it all was just to service the mood and feel of the game, right? It wasn't like a Final Fantasy game where it's like every step of the way there's twists and turns. Like it's the story is not like a book of dialogue. But like the actual, I don't know. I think maybe Breath of the Wild or possibly Twilight Princess. My favorite actual.
I was gonna say Twilight Princess has a lot of backstory.
Yeah. So I think like I like the whole idea of like the Twilight realm and like what happened to those people, and people trying to get out of it, and the way Zelda's presented in there, and like how it all services the world. So I think story wise it was either that or Breath of the Wild. Theme wise, I think it was probably Ocarina or Majora's Mask.
I actually think the best intro in the entire series to any of the games, the one that like hit me the most emotionally, and it is just probably a timing thing, like you were saying with Ocarina of Time, was probably the opening intro to Wind Waker. That song just hits so different.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do. When I played it, I was
You're a lot
like 2
older.
years ago. So it's like it didn't like hearing that song now. Like it's a good song, but it doesn't really do anything for me emotionally because I mean I played it as a full grown adult with a child.
Right.
You know, like it's one of those things.
But it did hit different for me back when, because I was
Yeah.
actually, let me think. So Wind Waker came out in what year? 2000,
2002.
2002.
I want to say maybe 2001. I think it was 2002 though.
Okay, I know it was a middle school game for me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like that turning point. Same idea.
2002.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. I played it in middle school. I don't know exactly when I got it. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, and also too, like, I mean, Wind Waker is about like a younger boy who goes on this amazing adventure. I think he's like the youngest of all the different Link
You're probably right
versions.
about that.
So it's like, I think for a lot of people that played that when they were in middle school or elementary school, like it probably hit a certain way because it's kind of like, that's me, you know, like that's me. Like I'm this boy, this young kid, you know.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, my nostalgia for Wind Waker is literally not good, but I could see where you're coming from though.
That intro hits different. Because I had played Majora's Mask and I felt like that because it was like so dark of a game to come from to go to Wind Waker.
Yeah.
At the time, it was like, you know, it just hit different because it was like it's supposed to be this happy, charming game, and you're into it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is kind of sad.
Yeah,
the hero time didn't make it. Like, what happened? And I was very confused at the time because I was like, wait a second, Ocarina of Time, he wins. Like, how is this? What is this?
Yeah, it's like this sort of alternate branch that like it wasn't really well explained, but it's
At
like,
all.
And you don't, yeah. So it was definitely interesting. But I mean, I do like that sort of the darker take on, you know, it didn't work out kind of thing.
Seeing Grandma left behind in Wind Waker is really sad. It's like Link waving goodbye to his childhood.
Yeah, it is kind of sad.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I love the ocean theme. I thought the music for that was very stylistic, very well done. And
love the ocean theme too. Just don't like the ocean.
I don't like the ocean that much either. It's a pretty creepy place. There's a lot of crazy stuff in the ocean. Yeah, we won't go into the ocean today. We'll talk about Jaws a different day or something. I don't know. Or the lack of good Jaws games.
Yeah.
That'd be a great series to try and get into the betas of the Jaws games. Like, I would love to see what those games look like before they released some of the trash piles that came out.
Oh my God, yeah.
But I think the last question for you for Zelda is what other types of spin-off games would you like to see? We've already seen, Link's crossbow training. We've seen the Dynasty Warriors stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can call the CBI games a spin-off, but they exist.
Yeah. Well, Captain Toad was originally a Zelda spin-off.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's why it's so puzzle oriented. And
okay.
Originally, like it was going to be, because Toad can't jump, right? And Link traditionally can't jump. So that's why he can't jump. So they kind of changed it in Captain Toad to be like, oh, his backpack's just so heavy, and that's why he can't jump. But yeah, so that really is kind of like a Zelda spinoff that never really it's a Zelda spinoff in all but the enemies and the main character, realistically. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty, it kind of functionally is. So that would have been cool if it was Zelda, but it's also fine that it's Captain Toad too. I think the Dynasty Warrior spinoffs are, from what I played through the entirety of not every single aspect of, but from gameplay start to final boss of the Wii U version. I thought it was fantastic.
Did you know this exists?
I did. I've never played it.
Me either.
But yeah, I don't know what else. What other things they could do with it? I'm trying to think just what other genres there are, because there are kind of little bits of other genres in there. Like there's a little first person, there's a little bit of stealth genre in there. There's a little bit. There's there's fishing. There's he occasionally pilots vehicles, and horses and what have you. So I'm not sure. Like, I mean, there's oh, sorry, go on.
I'll tell you what they haven't done that I think they could make a ton of money off of.
What's that?
Imagine if they released a like Zelda sim.
Oh yeah,
where you were like living in the world of Zelda in a calamity, non horrible time period of this history. Like, just imagine like Hyrule Life Simulator.
That would be kind of cool. Yeah, that actually would be kind of cool, as a matter of fact. And like but I think they would have to do it where you can still fight if you want
Oh,
to.
sure, yeah.
But it's like, like a life simulator. You can go out into the out of the village and like fight and like get things and bring it back. Almost not like a Minecraft necessarily, but kind of similar where you get items and you can continue your little house or whatever. That would be kind of cool.
And you could even like change time periods. Like you could do something in this time period and then move it forward. Like I was talking about the timeline. This kind of fits where you like move from one part of the timeline to the next and just see where what you've built up, what happens to it as you move from one part of the timeline to the next.
Yeah, it'd be cool. It would be like, you start in the beginning of whatever timeline and then you see what happens to your house and your descendants. So it's like you have a certain, based on your decisions, you have a certain number of descendants, whatever, for the next generation. And you kind of see, and then it like cycles through the time periods and games and such as you go about. That'd be kind of neat. That'd be really cool, actually.
And the reason I thought of this was because of them inserting Link into Skyrim.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about what else.
Because you could go around into the towns and play the mini games, and they participate in the fairs and whatever they have going on, the marketplace, the hustle and bustle of Hyrule. Yeah. Imagine visiting the castle and finding out that you have this horrible king and or something at the time. Like he's like, "Be gone, peasant."
Yeah. No, that would be kind of interesting, Oh,
they could make you be Link's parents.
Oh yeah, you have to raise your little Link. There's got to be. I have to have some idea on this. I can't think of anything. I think that's probably the best spin-off idea I've heard of, because it's all about like the lore and the exploration, right? So it's like if you had those elements, you could.
You could also have one where you're like playing as a they kind of did this with Majora's Mask, but they never finished it. Where instead of being like Link but in a mask, maybe you could play a game as like one of these side characters. Like you play the entire game as like a Goron, or like I keep wanting to say Tora, but that's Bionicle. That's not the right name. I'm trying to think of the name for the water species.
Oh, Zora.
Zora. I was like, I know I'm close.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool. I mean, you could also incorporate it into that life sim. What species do you want to be? But yeah, having a Zelda game where you're not like a Hylian elf would be kind of neat. Like what kind of, I guess the only issue is that a lot of these other like races or species in Zelda are like very land specific. So it's like, you're not going to want to be a Zora anywhere other than a water game. You're not going to want to be like a Goron outside of like, you don't want to be a Goron near water. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like you'd have to find a way
you could
that
play
you
the whole game in like that area.
You could, if they expanded enough where it's like, here's this region.
Like the Zora game could almost be like what you get with Subnautica. Because they've never had the water level be massive. They've never had the Gorons like home be massive. Imagine like they expanded it to the level of Breath of the Wild, and you just got like this big subsection of the map is all Goron's land. Yeah, and then they're playing within the realm of their normal area.
Yeah, or you have something where it's like, not as large as Breath of the Wild, but maybe like
I'm saying like the section of Breath of the Wild that they lived in Breath of the Wild. It's big enough that it could be a whole game, but it's small enough that it's shorter.
Yeah, like imagine if you had like a map where you had each one of those areas, maybe each one of those areas is expanded by like 1.5 times or something like that. And then you play through the game as like chapters, where it's like you can kind of go through a full adventure as each species as you rotate around the map or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it'd be kind of neat.
The other thing I had thought about, and you can tell me if you think it's a dumb idea or a good idea, was imagine like you play as the sages in Ocarina of Time, and like you have to line up all of the people's stories so that they are helping Link at the exact time they need to be there.
That would be complicated. I don't know how that would be set up.
But can you imagine like setting something like that up where you're playing all of the side characters that assist Link in his journey?
Yeah, that would be kind of neat. Oh, okay. Here's an easy one that kind of is sort of like people have been wanting for a while in terms of different type of game. Dungeon Builder, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
Mario Maker, but for Zelda, right? Or even something more complex where it's like you are one of the sages, like you said, and you need to build this temple to prevent Ganon's minions like from getting to it. So it's almost like a tower defense in a way.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you have to build in all of these traps. So like the average peasant or minion or whatever can't get to whatever crystal you have at the end of it, you know? So it's like somewhere between like a dungeon maker and a tower defense and like, you know, but it's like Hyrule themed.
Have you, just for one more thing, have you seen this yet? This guy, Cody Can't Eat This, made The Legend of Zelda, the original game, 3D.
Yeah, I think I did see that. I haven't like looked at it in depth, but
it looks a lot like 3D Dot Game Heroes. That's the first thing
exactly
I thought of.
Like that, yeah.
But I like your idea. I think that's another, like, I hadn't even thought about that, but we should get a Legend of Zelda Dungeon Maker. And the whole point of it should be that you want to stump your friends on some really good puzzles.
Yeah,
like or have a really good boss.
The online play would be insane. Right?
It would take over Twitch. Honestly, it would for at least the first few months.
Yeah. I'm not sure Nintendo's ever heard of Twitch or the internet. So
I mean, they know YouTube. They know how to release YouTube videos.
Yeah, that's about it.
You're probably not that far off on their understanding of how Twitch works.
They probably don't see it as any sort of marketing opportunity, which is a huge mistake.
I mean, Nintendo really fudged their Nintendo partner program stuff where I really think that they were doing a good job, and then all of a sudden they like kind of broke it.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely better than they were in the past. I'm not sure about the partner program necessarily, but like it used to be like you show a cutscene, you have a little snippet of Nintendo music, and you're demonetized, you know.
Just shut it down.
Yeah, or like they requested you take it down or whatever, and then it just became demonetized, and then it became we'll like kind of share it with you, and now it's kind of more so like in terms of the monetization, now it's more so like it doesn't even seem like they care. Like if it's first party, there's plenty of third party games. Like I had a video that had like was released today that was related to Turok, and I had some Turok music, and that got claimed.
That
so
sucks.
This was like while it was like a day before it was being released, so it ran through the checks and it said, okay, no, there's a copyright issue. So I was able to like swap out the music, re-render it, re-upload, and it was fine. But it seems like it's less so Nintendo now and more so like specific third parties with their music. So
I didn't even think about this. I think it would be really cool to see a Zelda spin-off that's an RTS where you use each race tactically.
What's an RTS?
Like Age of Empires.
Oh yeah,
like you can kind of apply what I was talking about, where you build up the civilization.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that would be kind of cool.
Seeing how you could build up the Zora race or like build up the Gorons, that's actually a pretty good idea. I don't know if Nintendo would ever do that because Nintendo is not known for RTSs like at all.
Yeah, well, that's why you got to outsource some of this stuff for new ideas. I mean, they did with Koei Tecmo, and they got the Warriors games, and
right?
Great.
That's a good idea.
I mean, I think Nintendo knows enough that they need to outsource certain things that they're not good at, but maybe not enough to do it en masse, you know?
Fair enough. All right. We are nearing about an hour and 20 minutes, and I wanted to give Tony the opportunity to maybe give us something he wants to talk about if there's anything left.
I didn't have any like specific topics. I was just kind of here for the ride, see what you threw at me, to be honest with you. But I mean, like, I'm excited for what Nintendo has in store. I think like, we bash Nintendo a lot, but it's also like we've been really well treated by Nintendo over the last like 5 years.
Like when you look at what they release versus what the competitors release, and you see that there's like very little things that are broken in any of the games that they put out, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, their games are mostly damn near finished, and they occasionally do patches that like tweak tiny little things,
Unless you include Super Mario Party, where they like completely changed the game.
Oh yeah.
Patch like 2 years later, whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, aside from that instance, like their games are mostly finished. Their games, especially their first party stuff, are really freaking solid. They removed, I think with the Switch, they've wised up a lot. They removed the region like locking, like there's a lot of stuff where they're just like play as you play, and I appreciate that. So it's not really a topic of conversation, just so much as a hey, we complain and we could critique, but I think in reality, like I'm only playing Nintendo stuff right now. Yeah, not necessarily first party Nintendo stuff, but just on a Switch. That's really all I'm playing.
And I'm looking forward to that Steam Deck because I'm going to be playing everything portably when that comes out.
Yeah, I am kind of tempted, to be honest with you, because I mean I like physical media, but
my Steam library is pretty big. I don't got to buy anything new to use my Steam Deck.
Yeah, I mean I go on Steam once every 3 years, and I still have enough games on Steam I haven't played that I could kind of justify the purchase of a Steam Deck, to be honest with you.
That's how I'm going to play Halo Infinite. So
yeah, I mean, I'd like to have that Switch experience, but with like Nintendo specific titles.
Well, Phil Spencer basically made a point to say that almost everything that's available via the Microsoft PC is going to be the Game Pass on PC is going to probably be playable on the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Because he said he played the Master Chief Collection on there and it ran beautifully.
Yeah, I mean it's got a pretty reasonable amount of power.
Yes,
I mean it's got a good amount of power for being such a small device. So it's one of those things. I think it could do well.
I don't know if it'll beat the Switch in numbers, but it will certainly be.
It won't, but
I think it'll be a bigger player than anything Steam's done in the past.
Oh yes, definitely. As far as like a physical
Valve. Not Steam. Steam's not a company.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. But as far as like a physical item, like that you like in the gaming market, I definitely think so. Because you got to keep in mind, like you want to play Nintendo stuff, you have an option, the Switch. If you want to play PC games, well, most of the market is on Steam. Then there's some other options, although the Steam Deck will allow you to just do whatever. It's built in with Steam, but it's not locked anyway. So, but you even still, you're going to have some people that don't realize that, and maybe Steam isn't their preferred medium, and they get confused and whatever. But then you also have the market where it's like, I built up my PC gaming rig. I like PC gaming. I have this crazy expensive, station that I created, and I'm proud of it. I got my gamer chair, and this is the way I like to game. So you have PC gamers that are kind of already of that mindset, and then you're splitting the demographic. Now that Nintendo has proven that this sort of the hybrid console is a viable concept, you're going to have enough people that switch over from just I'm PC Master Race only to the Steam Deck, but you're still going to have a split audience, right? Versus the Switch, where it's like, if you want to play the only option, this is your option. If you want to play PC games or play on the Steam games or whatever, you have multiple options.
Well, when you look at the number of people on PC that bought a Switch, it's like a no-brainer to make a portable console that people can use with their Steam library.
It makes total sense, and I think it'll do well. But it's kind of a little apples and oranges when it comes to like the audience.
Fair.
That it can reasonably attract, I think.
So I just want to plug one last thing then for you, since you said you like shorter dungeons and you like Zelda.
Yes.
Have you ever played this game?
I think you told me about that before. Wasn't it like originally like an Apple exclusive?
It was originally an iOS exclusive, but the dungeons are short enough that you're not spending 3 hours. It's so much like Zelda and it's on the Switch.
Okay.
And the second one, Oceanhorn 2, is also on this. Oceanhorn 2 is more like Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Oceanhorn 1 is more like your top-down traditional Zelda.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't played it, but I'll give it a chance. I'm playing through a bunch of these, as I mentioned, these old PS1 RPGs. Right. So it might be a while before I get to it.
But you can finish this whole game in about 12 hours.
Really? Yeah, those are the kind of games I like nowadays because I could just like burn through it.
I got 100% of the achievements on the Xbox and the PS Vita.
Damn. Yeah,
I really liked
I'm playing through Saga Frontier right now, and it's kind of nice because there's like 10 main protagonists, and each of their stories isn't like 60 hours long. Like they all have relative, like you can get start to finish with them in like a moderate amount of time, like 12 to 15 hours. So it's like, yes, I'll play through a couple of them, get done, be bored with the game, and just move on.
This is like if Link to the Past and Wind Waker had a baby. This is what it would look like.
Yeah.
Because it's got like the theme of Wind Waker, but it's got like the charm of Link to the Past. Yeah. But it's a lot shorter. It's something you can get through a dungeon in like a 20-30 minute sitting.
That's awesome. Yeah, I might check that out. I like the art design too.
I really love the art design. I like the first one better than the second one, just because the second one does the Breath of the Wild thing a little too well.
Oh,
it looks like a Breath of the Wild game.
Oh, okay.
It looks like it could be a direct copycat almost, but it is different. It is different enough because you have 3 people instead of 1, and you play as all 3 of them. So it is different enough. Let's see if I can get. Yeah, see, this is what the second one looks like.
Oh, okay. So it's a totally different, like
totally different. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
They took the Zelda route where you kind of change the formula way, like a lot, to go from 1 to 2. And they spent like almost a decade making the second one. It was a long time.
Wow.
The first one they spent a long time on both of them, really, because they're independent developers in like I think Finland or Sweden or one of those countries over there.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
I'm always talking about how many like these Breath of the Wild 2 clones that are like people are like, well, yeah, actually it's really good. It's like there's been a lot of like Breath of the Wild 2 sort of clones or like similar enough where like they took like real heavy inspiration from them, where they're actually like really well reviewed.
They started development of this, the Oceanhorn 2, before Breath of the Wild came out. So they already had their art style locked in.
Okay. But do you think when Breath of the Wild came out, they probably made some adjustments?
I don't think so, because they said straight up they're inspired by Zelda. They straight up said this is inspired by Zelda. So like a lot of their elements, there are borrowed elements from the Zelda series, and Nintendo has allowed them to exist. So like they're not getting sued into the ground or anything. But they have said like we take direct inspiration. We love the Zelda series, and we've kind of evolved it in our own thing. So I don't know. I think it's pretty cool.
I'll start with the first one. Go from
I would do that because I've had a hard time getting into the second one, mostly because the only available platform it was on was iOS because it was an Apple Arcade exclusive. But now it's on the Switch.
Okay.
I think it's like a $25 game or something, and maybe $30.
How much is the original one?
It's $15 or less. I know it goes on sale quite a bit. Like it's been down to like $5 to $7 at times.
Okay. Yeah, when I see it for like a sale, I might pick it up.
It is also there's a physical copy of it from Limited Run Games.
It's like $1 million.
I don't think it's now you got me curious. I have the PS Vita version, cart for that. It was also a PS4 release too, so there's a disc.
Okay.
But if you go to eBay, let's just see. I'm curious. Can't remember which one was the most expensive. I think the Oceanhorn Switch.
Oh, that's not bad. $63. Well, this is actually there's
17 minutes left. Get it?
Yeah.
Just kidding. I mean, it's not horrible. It's not the best. Like this is probably about what it goes for, about $100, I think, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
It was like maybe 35 shipped when I bought it from my brother-in-law.
Yeah, it might be worth it if I can get a decent deal on it. I mean, if I see it for like $5 on the Switch, I'll probably just do that. But if I can get a decent deal physical, maybe I'll
It is one of those ones that I kind of regret not buying myself a copy, despite not having a Switch when it came out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's going up in there on the Vita, too. All right.
Vita stuff is like that, though. If there's anything worth it on the Vita,
it plays perfect on the Vita. It's one of the best adventure games on the Vita, in my opinion. Yeah. And it's worth getting if you have a Vita and you want to use your Vita for something. I definitely recommend having this game. I think PS4 might be the cheapest. Yeah, I think that's the cheapest edition is the PS4 version.
Generally, with limited run stuff, if there's a PS4 and a Switch version, the Switch version tends to appreciate and value more.
Yeah, I mean, see, new sealed 60. That's only like slightly above what it's shipped at. It was like $35 or something. So like you're talking a $25 increase, and this came out in like 2018, 2019. So
yeah,
It's been out there for a while.
Okay.
But yeah,
I'll have
if
to check it
anybody's
out.
interested in a Zelda-esque game, this is definitely the one I recommend because it's the most, in my opinion, most polished copycat of Zelda, and there are like very little bugs at this point since it's been out for so long.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the 4K Apple TV, I don't recommend you try playing it on an Apple TV because the processor is a little too weak to run the Oceanhorn 2 on the Apple TV. The 4K edition has a better processor.
Switch, I guess.
Yeah. So that was the last thing I wanted to say. Is there any other Zelda-esque like games that you've played that you enjoyed, or pretty much not really?
You know, a lot of the other, not super Zelda. Like, I mean, a lot of the other games I played had like action adventure elements, like definitely nothing for any like recent systems. I mean, back in the day, I was into the sort of like hybrid between an RPG and like a Zelda style. So like your Secret of Mana type stuff, where it's like but that has a very low focus on puzzle elements, which is all about, you know, what Zelda's all about. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've played too many Zelda copycats. I just like the sort of action adventure, action RPG genre a lot. And
it is a really fun genre.
Yeah.
I liked seeing, in my opinion, like Halo isn't Halo without Zelda existing, because there are platforming elements to Halo, and I think Zelda, not platforming, adventure puzzle-ish kind of stuff, and like a lot of games borrow from Zelda. Zelda kind of pioneered a lot of elements that games have borrowed or used or advanced on. Like I don't think Skyrim exists if Zelda doesn't exist. Personally, I don't. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think the Elder Scrolls has existed for a long time, but I think Zelda really set the formula out there for other games to do their own thing.
Yeah, that would be an interesting video to do. You know, top 5, top 10 Zelda clones. You know,
if you want to do that, Tony, I'm all ears. We can do that sometime.
I mean, I don't think I have the time to play through 5 Zelda clones, but
no, just pick like 5 of your friends and each of you pick one.
Oh yeah, I guess you could do that too. So I don't have to play. I don't have to play through one.
Exactly. There you go.
Oh well, I'll think about it. Might have to at some point.
So, well, Tony, it is an hour and a half in, and I wasn't planning on doing the full 2 today unless you want to. So if you'd like to cut it here, we can.
Probably should get to bed. You know, last night my daughter, she woke up at 11, 12, and then 1 because she kept saying she was hungry and wanted food, so I'd feed her, and then she'd get like mad and throw the food, and then I'd be like, okay. What? She was like in like a haze.
Yeah, I know, I get it.
And she'd be like, Dada, hungry. I'm like, okay, sweetie, what do you want? You know, do you want some chicken nuggets or whatever? I'm like, she's like, yeah. And then she'd be like, take a bite, and then she'd kind of like wake up and be like, ah. And then she wouldn't go back to bed, so I was sleeping on the couch because sometimes that comforts her so she can sleep because she could see me from her bedroom. And so I just have her like sleep on my chest for a little while. Yeah. She's only like 2, so
yeah, my 2-year-old's done that before.
Yeah, she's little enough that she can like I could still breathe. And then she would wake up and talk about balloons. She'd like fall asleep and then wake up and want to talk to me about balloons. And so like, anyways, if the same thing happens tonight, I might be in for it. So I probably should sleep.
My son usually wakes up. If he wakes up in the middle of the night, he thinks it's time to go watch Blippi. And I'm like, dude, no.
Oh yeah, not Blippi.
Not in the middle of the night.
Anything but Blippi.
Specifically, there's one episode they refer to as Chocolate Blippi. I guess it's like an ice cream chocolate Blippi episode or something.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I've seen it, thank God, but can't stand Blippi. Can't deal with it.
I respect the empire he's built.
Oh, I respect it too. I just don't want to watch it. It's just too much for me. Like, it's too wild.
I do want to, at some point in the future, do a gaming as a dad cast.
Oh, yeah.
Just discuss all of that. So, at some point, if you're up for that.
God. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to discuss, especially when the kids get into the depths of YouTube and such. But,
yeah.
But yeah, probably should call it here. Just you know, so I can make sure I can be prepared for my monsters tonight. Should there be any issues?
Well, best of luck to sleeping tonight. I hope you get some good sleep in.
You too. We'll see.
If you guys haven't subscribed yet, go to youtube.com/hard4games. I'm planning to share this somewhere else. We'll see if it gets any traction there. And then maybe we'll get some new fans on both of our channels.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, if anyone's watching that would like to join us, we'd love to have you.
He's very close to 85K.
We're close. We're getting there. We just need a little extra push.
Little push
over the finish line for the 85K mark. So
I'd like to see you guys hit 100K by the end of the year.
It's not going to happen.
I know. It's channel growth's weird.
Every time I look at Social Blade, it says 6 more months till we hit, or no, a year actually. And then I'll check 6 months later and it'll say, okay, well now you have a year until 100K. And then I'll check in another 6 months and it'll be like about a year. And it's like, so it's like for some reason we just can't get enough traction for like that year to go by. It keeps resetting. So it's just so depressing.
we got to do another Shrek parody. Maybe we'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. That's all we need. Oh, by the way, I can't remember if I ever told you this, but like I was planning originally to like share the ad revenue, but it got claimed. Oh. And so because it recognized that it was a Leonard Cohen piece, right? So it basically did a thing where it was like a shared revenue.
Ooh.
So with the copyright owner, which I'd never seen before, I think it was because it was a cover.
Well, it's a parody. Parodies are like weird.
Yeah. So then I looked like I was like, okay, it probably hasn't amounted to much in terms of like monetization because of this. And so I looked like a couple months after we released it, maybe like 3-4 months or whatever. And it was, of course, that's the main time you get views. Right. Video. And it was like 75 cents. So I was like, okay, clearly I'm not going to, send a PayPal to Chris that's like less than $1. So like, it's just not going to happen.
I was never asking for revenue, just for the record.
I know you weren't. But if it made some, I wanted to like surprise you, and be like, oh, cool. Like cool. Here's, maybe it'd been like $20 or something. I don't know, whatever. And like I was going to like split it down the middle, but it was like less than $1 because the copyright owner stole it all from us. So
do you have any? Did they ever tell you? Okay, so I haven't had this happen to me yet, and this is something I don't know the answer to. And we can discuss this off air if you'd rather, since we're already kind of towards the end here. But I'll ask you off after we get off. But okay. If you guys haven't subscribed to this gentleman below, he's an awesome guy. He's got a great channel. He's got some cool friends on there with him. And even got featured in some Metal Jesus Rock stuff. So definitely,
that's fun.
Definitely a cool guy. And if you haven't subscribed, you need to do it now. That's an order for my entire Krillcast swarm of people.
Gotta hit that 85,000. Yeah.
I'm sure that there's some Halo people that watch our channel that haven't subscribed yet. Please subscribe. Get him to that 85K. Maybe he'll cover a demo of a Halo disc at some point.
Who knows?
Maybe he'll stumble upon the extremely rare Halo 2 demo that nobody seems to be able to find.
Who's to say? You know what? Stuff just shows up. So I look for stuff and I never find it, and then I don't look for stuff and then it shows up. So
it's just mailed to him, like, Tony, look at this.
It's not. It's you just never know.
So, and he's got one of the most obscure hardware channels on the internet. So definitely go check it out.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff there. So it's fun. It's fun. You get to see some stuff you probably never seen before, which is always interesting. So
yes. So as always, I am Chris of the CHRILLCAST.
I'm Tony from Hard4Games. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we will see you all next time Tony's on.
Take care.